TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android, whichever one you have. When you download, make sure to rate and subscribe and leave a comment, as both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Like I said, I am Scott Churchson. This is the Sports Den, now rocking a brand new background that I've got over here. Find us on Twitter at SSW Sports Den. Alongside us today, we have Mr. Michael Ventola back. Thank you very much, sir. How you doing?
Doing great, my friend. Glad to be back and looking forward to hanging out with you guys today.
Cool. Thank you, man. Alongside me, they'll get the full allotment of stuff. Before I'm going to introduce everybody. They're going to try something new here, see if that works. Obie, how you doing, man?
Great. Looking forward to your new things that you got for us.
Yeah, we got a couple new things. I have not played any of it for you, so we're going to try some of that. Jared, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, man?
It's okay. Like I said, trying out a little bit of a different setup here, trying to see if we can get some stuff going. That way it's a little diversity, a little excitement in there.
To the
Rob,
right
how
of
about
him?
yourself?
Is that a what? What'd you say, Jared?
Is that a mountain to the right of him? I don't know. Like,
What's that? This actually came from Eduardo's wife. He made the backdrops for this and Tales from the Film Set. So I reworked I literally, somewhere around 2:00, redid some of the stuff here in the basement, moved the green screen to the other side of the room, have this brand new setup that I've got here in order to actually have, the webcam here. I got the lights, I've got the green screen. So it's so much better than that really boring blasé white background that I've been using for so long anyway.
Wait, what's wrong with
but see, you have a gray background. Your gray background also works with the motif that you have, especially with the hat, the facial hair, the whole shebang. By the way, Mike, this is Obie. You guys have never spoken before today, so
pleasure to meet you, Mike.
Pleasure to meet you.
And if anything goes wrong, just blame me today. That's what we're
exactly.
doing. Just blame me. If anything Scott does goes wrong, it's my fault.
Yes. Going to try this right now. If it fails epically, one of you guys let me know just with a thumbnail. But much like Obie's show, we have a new theme at this point. So let's see what happens here. Thank you in advance to Mr. Michael Rochelle. All right.
Nice.
Yes. Thank you to Mr. Michael Rochelle of Shade Tree Mechanics. The last time they had the International Blues Competition, his band represented New Jersey in the International Blues Competition. He was nice enough to record that for me. So thank you for that. Like I said, we got a bunch of stuff that we want to cover today. I want to talk some Tim Tebow. I want to talk Phillies in there. I wanted to basically talk about a lot of stuff that's happening. I also wanted to talk about a couple of trade options for Deshaun Watson as well. And as usual, we do have an obscure sport. So let me start this off. Tim Tebow, I know, Mike, I talked to you a little bit about this. Obie, I know you have some thoughts, and Lord knows I got a few thoughts on this. But Tim Tebow has officially ended his Major League Baseball career. Wanted to get your thoughts on that. I wanted to get your ideas on what you think is coming next. I got a couple ideas of my own. Michael, let's start with you, man.
Well, I guess you could say I was fortunate enough to watch Tim Tebow during his farewell season in minor league ball. He did get the opportunity to finish the season back in 2019 with AAA Syracuse. And, I'll say this, especially for someone who works in minor league baseball, he brought a lot of good things to minor league ball. He brought on a lot of extra fans, like extra eyes on the sport. There was really a lot of great publicity with him coming in, and I got the opportunity to meet with him, especially his first trip into Lehigh Valley, the Phillies AAA affiliate, back in April of 2019, and he was tremendous. He's a tremendous human being, true class act, extremely professional. He was fantastic with media, fantastic with fans. He was signing baseballs, signing memorabilia left and right. People were coming in with Tim Tebow University of Florida jerseys, Broncos jerseys, New York Jets jerseys. I don't want to talk about it, but there were plenty of Tim Tebow memorabilia throughout it. And I would have to think, that his next venture, at least for now, is I would think unless he wants to resume playing football in some capacity, I would think that the world of media is going to really embrace him. I assume he's going to continue his role with ESPN, doing a lot of college football work, and he's very good at that. So I'm excited to see him and continue to grow in that department. And if he does want to go back and play football, he certainly looks the part because he was in top-notch shape 2 seasons ago.
He was, but the problem is he's obviously getting older. He's 32, 33, I think, at this point now. So that's already on the back end of the career. And granted, in great physical shape. You saw what he looked like when he was playing with the Mets and everything like that. Do you think he's going to come back in sports, or do you think he's done and he's going to go right to the broadcasting route?
I think he's going right to the broadcast booth, and he should, because his knowledge of college football is tenfold. Obviously, his pedigree speaks for itself, and he's got such a large following where, if ESPN really wants to continue to take advantage of that, I think he's going to continue to do more than just doing analyst type work on a desk, whether it be, college, if he gets involved with College Game Day or studio work. I could see him going in a booth at some point. And, usually when a guy gets put in a booth, obviously, and I would think for him, they may continue to work him up the ladder, especially because of how well he's able to present his knowledge and how he's able to break down film and things of that nature. So that's where I see Tim Tebow going in the near future, and hopefully for a long time.
Cool. My personal take is I'd like to honestly see him salvage something. I think one of you guys I talked to, in regards to possibly the XFL being the next landing spot for him, again, because of the marketing draw that he could be. Obie, give me your thoughts. Is he done?
So I'm going to talk about what he was, not where he's going. Sorry, you asked where he's going. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not going to guess where Tim Tebow's going. He's a driven, focused individual, and he's going to do what he wants to do. And I wouldn't bet that he's not going to be successful. I think that Tim Tebow, the worst thing that happened to him was the Denver Broncos trading up into the first round to get him because they had to pay him first round money. And I think that there is a GM and a coach out there that is watching that fact that Tim Tebow won games, watching Lamar Jackson win games, watching what a young Russell Wilson did, and is saying, my plan is to pick these running quarterbacks in the 3rd, 4th round and pick one every other year, and not build my franchise around the quarterback, but build it around the rest of the team and play 11-on-11 football. And I think Tim Tebow showed that was possible. He was not the first. He won't be the last, but he was one of the better throwers who you could have imagined keeping on the cheap. Because you're not going to keep Lamar Jackson on the cheap. You're not going to keep Russell Wilson on the cheap. And then winning with him 4 or 5 years and then replacing him. Because honestly, the teams that are playing 11-11 football, they haven't won the Super Bowl yet, but they have been successful. I know Rob knows how Miami did with a complete non-quarterback playing 11-11 football. And just give a guy who can throw a little bit. Throwing great is a specialty. Tim Tebow was not a great thrower. He didn't have that specialization that was going to earn him the $20 or $30 million, now $40 million contract. But he deserved a shot, and I think getting picked in the first round prevented that legitimate shot because the look was now you're going to have to pay him eventually. The other thing about Tim Tebow, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I'm going to do a show, Tim Tebow and some other guys, but dual sports guys, I think it's amazing what an athlete can do in a different sport when they try. I mean, I know Tim Tebow never got out of minor league ball. The Mets didn't take advantage of just pulling him up to bring fans in. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, that they didn't just call up the circus for the sake of calling up the circus. But, he was a legitimate AAA player, and he didn't play baseball his whole life. But you just see all these guys, and you wonder if the next Bo or Dion is really back there somewhere going to try that again, because that was spectacular when it happened. Those are my 2 big thoughts on Tim Tebow. Oh, one more. Tim Tebow, as much as we, I keep coming back to this, talk about QBs and QB wins and the greatest of all time. Tim Tebow showed that was one of those guys who's like, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about QB wins because he got them and nobody cared. They moved on from him.
I think
those are my thoughts on Tim Tebow. I think the NFL is going to already has missed him, and I would like to keep his name in our thoughts, whether it's in the booth in college, in the booth in the NFL, in the booth in baseball, or sitting at a sports center desk, whatever it is he wants to do. I wouldn't suspect for a moment he won't be successful if he wants to be in the public eye.
I think so too. I think he is one of those genuine good guys, which is ironic because a lot of the haters give him a hard time for the fact that he is one of the good guys. My thought is this, and let me know how your opinion. Rob and Jared will get to you in a second. I want to get your thoughts as well. When I was in finance, one of the phrases that we used to hear a lot, and usually when I did something wrong, was after a while, it's not your people. You know, where after a while, if your people keep failing, it's not on them, it's on you. I often wonder if when they had the trade to take him, I mean, when he went to the Jets, they tried an experimental 2-quarterback dual system where sometimes they would put out Tebow and Mark Sanchez at the same time on the same play, and then just promptly just gave up on it, you know, abandoned the project. And then he became this glorified, like, wide receiver, running back, tight end, whatever they kind of wanted to do, because they couldn't figure out what to do with him. I've often wondered if he was under the right kind of pedigree and the right kind of coaching, could he have improved and been a more reputable quarterback than he is now? Rob?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I agree with Mike and Obie. I think that where he's going to go, he's going to end up in broadcast. That's to some extent. It'll probably be at the college level. Ideally, in a perfect world, I would love to see him start going and like announcing Jacksonville Jaguar games and start criticizing Urban Meyer. Like, you know, back in my day, Urban would have called this play and Trevor Lawrence just can't seem to make that play the way the Florida Gators quarterback used to do it. But yeah, he's headed towards broadcast for sure. I remember like 2-3 years ago, he was on ESPN, and the tweet is probably in my feed somewhere. I remember seeing him on camera, and I was like, did they cover him in glitter? Because the man was literally sparkling on camera. And I was like he was glowing. It looked like he had a Snapchat filter on. And they're like, and everyone swore, no, that's just Tim Tebow. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, the dude is glittering right now. Like, I was like, it's like he's destined for TV. Like, he just has a sparkle to him. But as Obie said too, I was shocked that the Mets didn't bring him up late, especially in some of those seasons when they were out of it early, just to put fans in the seats and everything. But yeah, his NFL career wasn't, you know, it fizzled. He was a solid MLB player and a minor league baseball player. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him come up to the big stage and see what he could do just for the entertainment value. But I think he's going to go to broadcast in some capacity. He's always been there anyway. It's like he never really left. He was still doing broadcast while he was playing minor league ball. He'd sneak out and everything. And he's a polarizing personality. People love him or they hate him, but he's polarizing. So he's going to be a draw.
I guess to me, I'm just disappointed because I would have liked to see him do more.
Yeah, I wanted to answer your question that you asked Rob, but like all of us when Rob spoke.
Yeah, anybody wants to answer that question, please do.
No, I have 2 words for your question. Yeah, it's an answer for your question. Sean Hill. And I think Tim Tebow is a better player than Sean Hill in every aspect of the game. And had he ended up there, I think it would have been spectacular.
So they could have basically gotten rid of what they refer to like a spaghetti arm.
Yeah.
That soft throwing thing that was criticizing him so much, they could have worked on that.
Yeah,
Jared,
like you said it wasn't necessarily him that failed. Like, it was kind of he never really had a good coach, dude. Didn't he have Josh McDaniels in Denver? And Josh McDaniels lasted literally like 3 weeks in Denver or something. He was a train wreck. Spygate 2.0 happened up there that most people don't remember. So it's not like his best years, like you said, it was probably in college. Urban Meyer knew how to use him. And we've talked about it before with other coaches, adjusting the game plan to what you have as opposed to trying to make the players adjust to the game plan. And he was a guy who needed a coach like that. He probably would have been great with Pete Carroll or maybe even Belichick.
Somebody who could have taken it and run with it. Yeah, you see that. I mean, obviously the Jets now have pretty much burned out on Darnell. You see that kind of issue there. You see what happened with Dwayne Haskins in Washington, which I want to talk about Washington because there's a buyer in the mix on that one that I'm really interested to get your takes on. Posted that on Facebook earlier. But Jared, any thoughts from you, sir?
Oh, no, pretty much the same thing as everyone else says. Broadcast is probably definitely going to be his career. With continue with ESPN and SEC Network. Probably after broadcasting, he might join like the Florida Gators staff, but that's as far as I could possibly think I'm going. He's definitely not going to go back to sports. However, many people don't know he's the only drafted quarterback by Denver to ever win a playoff game. So many people don't know that fact.
Interesting.
Either.
The 15
Yeah, every
to 10
quarterback
win.
that's ever won a playoff game from Denver was either traded. Yeah, they were either traded or signed.
Yeah, because John Elway was originally drafted by the Colts way back in the day.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I didn't realize that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I'm just at the end of the day very disappointed. I would have liked to have seen him get something out of it. I mean, you mentioned the fact that they could have brought him up with the Mets. They brought up Ike Davis. They took Ike Davis from the A level and catapulted him all the way up to the major league level. Frankly, I think way before he was ready for it. And I think his career sort of petered out because of it. I would have liked to have seen Tim Tebow get to the major league level, get him that one at bat. It is what it is. You're probably right. I have some weird level of hope that maybe he'll come back with the XFL, but maybe it is one of those things where he is more or less destined to abandon and go into broadcasting. Bob Euchre. Nobody remembers that Bob Euchre, spent like 6-7 years playing professional ball for Milwaukee. And then all of a sudden everybody remembers him, from Major League, the Brewers organization, play-by-play for years there. Mr. Belvedere, if you're an 80s kid, you remember that one too. But he played baseball. Nobody remembers that. Batted in even 200 too, right on that Mendoza line. So
people are going to remember Tony Romo the same way.
Tony Romo, I think, is better because again, in this case, he did play, I think, 12 years with the team. He had a good quarterback rating of 94, I think, whatever it ended up being. Again, we had that conversation a couple of weeks back. Is he a Hall of Famer? And I think all of us were in alignment that no, he's not, because he never even got to a conference championship. Broadcast Hall of Fame, sure. Go ahead.
I'll give you one final thought. Is Tim Tebow's a baseball player, and I echo all of your sentiments about how yes, you would have liked to see him get up to the major leagues because of with his journey, and obviously for him to have been such a football player for most of his career, then to switch over to baseball, he was kind of an anomaly. But I'm going to tell you this as someone who's been calling baseball and been watching baseball for a long time. A+ human being. He was not a good baseball player. He just was not. There were little things in left field. He had a tough time just misreading fly balls. He had the biggest happy feet I've ever seen. And if he could barely outside of hitting a fastball, he couldn't hit a curveball. Had a tough time with changeup, sliders. So, for him, yes, still to get to AAA was fantastic. But if you're looking at pure baseball sense, he did not deserve to get to the major leagues. But you know what? Still, if you're Tim Tebow, you put your head on the pillow at night, you're feeling good. You did some amazing things. Because in his first 2 pitches at single A and double A, he hit home runs. So
nice.
Still something to be pretty proud of.
He had the strength to be able to do it if he was able to make contact. It's almost in some ways like a reverse Drew Henson, if you remember that name. From the Yankee organization, eventually Dallas as well. So, all right. We are actually about 20 minutes in. Find us, of course, on Sports Den at SSW Sports Den on Twitter, and also Spangler Sports Den on Facebook as well. I got to fix that part of it. Moving on at this point, I did find this out a couple hours ago, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. But the Washington football team, who is again going with no name aside from football team again this year, Jeff Bezos has emerged as a potential candidate to buy the team. So whether or not they become the Washington Amazon Prime in 2022, notwithstanding, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because there was some talk for a while he was going to buy CNN. Now there's some talk that he may be one of the majority shareholders of the Washington football team if the sale ends up going through and Snyder sells. What do you think about that? Is he going to be Mark Cuban or is it going to be something different there? Whoever wants to jump in first, I'm cool.
I'm going to go with he's going to hire football people and let the team run and try to make money off it. That is my guess for if he was to be an owner, he would not be involved in the day-to-day running of the team owner. Just my guess.
I want to know what he's going to name the team. Is it going to be like the Amazon and it'd be like the Stanford Cardinal? It'll just be a tree for the jungle, or will it be like the Washington Amazons and just we'll have our first like non-male masculine logo? It'll just be like a Wonder Woman looking chick with like.
Oh, see, I thought this is going to be Amazon with the smile. Just put the name right on that.
So instead of like basically you got the New Jersey Red Bulls, you're just going to have the Washington Amazon Prime or just the Amazon.
Yeah. I think you're right, Scott. That will be the name.
Okay, that's good. We need Amazon more all over the place now.
But like Red Bulls is like it's Red Bulls, it's bulls. Like there's kind of like you get it, but like Amazon is like, oh, okay, what are we gonna do with this?
So, Any other thoughts on that? I just wanted to get an input because, like I said, that was out of left field. That was blowing up on Twitter a few hours ago.
I think in general, I think the NFL would be better off without Dan Snyder.
Yeah.
Any owner that's too involved in his team, you see consistently in getting involved and causing the team to be poor. I think that the league is better off without. So Dan Snyder is one of those guys who tinkers and destroys his team.
Got it. All right. So moving on at this point, we did actually talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. I think we talked about last week. There have been a couple of trades that have been percolating at this point. One of the ones that I find most intriguing right now, and I really want to get your thoughts on this, is Peter Schrager from Fox Sports proposed a trade, basically Deshaun Watson to Carolina for the following here. And I want to get your feel if this is too much. Deshaun Watson for Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, wide receiver, defensive end Brian Bird, Teddy Bridgewater, and for 2 first-round picks, 2021 and 2022. That to me is a hell of a lot. I mean, if you pulled out McCaffrey and maybe switch out like a second round or somewhere, maybe it softens it. But he seems to feel that maybe this is possible where this trade could go down. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm Texas, I make that deal. But do you feel that that's too much for Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. Like every trade that's pretty much come across the deck so far favors Texas, favors the Texans, favors Houston, but doesn't favor Deshaun Watson, whatever team he goes to. Like Deshaun's just going to go to the same situation or even a worse situation than the one he's currently in. Like if I was Houston, I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Give me like the second best running back in the league. Give me a decent quarterback and a wide receiver with this offensive line and all this cap space I now have because I'm getting rid of Deshaun and I've already gotten rid of JJ. So that's way too much for them to give. Like Carolina would do nothing. Like Deshaun Watson would be in a worse situation in Carolina than he was in Houston last year. So if I'm the Texans, I say yes. If I'm Carolina, I'm like, take a hike.
So if I'm Carolina, now the one thing about all these trades, and as Rob has said, everyone you see so favors the Texans, is that at some point Watson has to decide whether to take the trade or not. And he's obviously very unhappy with the organization, but he doesn't want to go to something that's going to just be impossible to win at, especially with his own cap number. But I think that what we saw from Mike Davis last year, given this trade, is probably a little much, but you can trade McCaffrey for Watson, given what you saw out of Davis last year.
You're talking 1-to-1.
Not even you could throw. I would even throw in Anderson, but not like this is too much. But I'm saying that you have the ability to work on a trade that you can let McCaffrey go for Watson in the deal. I don't know if I want to give up 2 firsts. I want to make sure I can give him an offensive line. I want to make sure that I can draft a wide receiver for him if I'm giving up Anderson. So this is too much. But hearing McCaffrey in the deal on its own does not scare me away from that deal. I think that's like a player that a bad owner would take. And that seems to be what Houston is doing. So I think there's a chance this is where he ends up. I think that's more than I would give up to get him. But definitely Bridgewater, definitely McCaffrey in that deal, I would do.
Now, it's interesting in this case here, Deshaun Watson did say that Carolina would be one of the 3 teams he'd be willing to accept a trade to. So if, again, which adds a little bit of credency to this, I believe Denver was one. The Jets were also one, which could be very, very interesting if he came to New York. But that could be a conversation for another time. Probably never. I'm sorry. I just don't see it happening myself. We had a long-standing conversation about that one the other day. But this one, like I said, was interesting because there's a lot to be given up. It's almost like, Carolina would be blowing everything up that they've got and mortgaging their future on Deshaun Watson. I don't like it. Again, but if you're Houston, you take that deal.
Yeah, I think if you're Houston, without question, you would take this deal on hand. But right now, as I'm looking at it and trying to analyze Carolina's pieces, like I agree with OB. Like I think you throw Christian McCaffrey in that deal because of what Mike Davis was able to do. Where I'm sitting there and I keep Bridgewater in that deal, and I actually keep the first round picks in that deal because, quite frankly, Houston's going to want draft capital. They want draft capital without question. And any deal that's going to be done with other teams, they're going to want more than just one first-round pick. He's at least going to demand 2 first-round picks. Well, I'm probably, if I'm Carolina, I would probably pull out, Robbie Anderson out of that deal. And I think it's still worthy. But or if you favor defense, then you pull Brian Burns out of that, because obviously Brian Burns is a really good defensive end. So I still think that deal would get done, because Houston, remember, Deshaun Watson has to sign off on the trade because he's got the no trade clause. So I think Carolina may be his best spot. If you're looking at pure draft capital, the Jets would certainly be the best team because they have the most draft capital to spend. But if you're looking between Carolina, Denver, and New York, Carolina is the best of those 3 teams. I understand Denver has some pieces, but Carolina, without question, even yes, with Tom Brady and yes, with Drew Brees, potentially, the Saints are still legitimate.
He did say he's coming back. So
that's what I mean. So you still have, but Deshaun Watson in that division with Matt Rule, who I think is going to be continue to improve as a head coach in the NFL. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I don't know how I don't accept the trade to Carolina.
I mean, you have to assume probably Drew Brees only has a year, maybe 2 years left.
Right.
You have to assume that Tom Brady only has 16 or 17 years left himself. So, but in this case here, like I said, I think it could theoretically work if you pulled out 1 or 2 pieces on that. So, like I said, I want to get your thoughts. Jared, you got any?
I think it's way too much. If I was going to do the trade, I would definitely, if I was Carolina, that is, I'll give McCaffrey, probably Bridgewater, and a first, but that's it. Like, I'm not going past that, pretty much. But, I mean, Watson is a game changer. The quarterback is much more important than the running back, because you can always fill in any running back, and they can always do the job. Like, you know what I mean? Like Ronald Jones, for instance, or Ronald Jones, for instance, you could plug him in, or anything of that nature. And Watson is the type of quarterback that would definitely win you the championship. Bridgewater definitely isn't, you know? So.
Fair enough. All right. So we are actually about halfway now. And usually at this point is when we start to actually go in the direction of obscure sports. So in this particular case, I already sent this to you guys. I'm going to try and share this one as well, if I'm lucky enough to be able to pull it off. There we go. Hang on a sec. Okay. So somewhere in New Zealand at some point, they decided, let's put it this way. Have you ever seen a hamster spinning in one of those little tiny balls rolling around the floor and thought to yourself, I'm really jealous of that. I'd like to be able to do that myself. Has that been something that you've ever actually considered at this point in time? Any one of you guys?
I used to have a hamster as a kid, and I used to put his name was Mario. I used to put him in and just let him go up and down the hallway. Once he went down the steps and survived, thankfully. So he got himself quite a little workout going down the steps. I remember putting him in. I'm going, man, imagine if I can just like shrink to his level, go in and just travel around. I think it would have been a lot of fun. So. Okay.
Now, anybody else on this?
No.
All right.
No.
So the good people in New Zealand have zorbing. And zorbing, very simply, is this. As simple as it is, you're just in this giant bowl with apparently a giant puddle of water, and you just roll downhill. Gonna be honest, actually, it's a really nice greenery back there. I think it's beautiful setup that way. New Zealand is usually pretty, very clement weather, shall we say. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I wanted to review this because I wanted to talk a little. Hang on a sec. There you go. Because I wanted to basically cover this because we have to talk about this sport, whether it's watchability, playability, stupidity, and also obscurity. That's our usual 4 criteria that we have, every week when we cover something like this. Obie, we usually start off with you, so I'm going to start off with you again. Give me your thoughts on zorbing.
All right, so oddity, I gave it a D, a low score, because I didn't think it was that odd.
Okay.
Looks like a fun activity. It's like an amusement park ride especially if you're doing the water one. You may even have some control over it. Obscurity, it's a C. I've seen it around before. You brought it up, seen videos, different things with it. It has a lot of ways of being done. So it's something that people are working on. You can do it in the water. You can do it with water in it. There's some that are built where you have a chair you're strapped into. So it's a lot of innovation still going on. Playability and enjoyment, I'm giving this a B.
Okay.
As someone who has a few skydives in them. This is like an almost extreme sport. Maybe extreme water parking, if you will. You're kind of running down in that. I would do it in a second. Absolutely would try it. But there's probably other activities I put ahead of it. Watchability. So I gave it a D. One of the questions we always ask is this a sport? And the reason it's getting a D is this is not a sport as you showed it there. But it's a D and not an F because there are opportunities to make this a sport. Mm-hmm. You can put a bunch of people in a bunch of different ones and play a giant game of marbles. I was thinking there's the water ones, you get people in the water, inside it, and on top of it, and do some sort of log rolling for time. It can become watchable if somebody takes the time to bring it, again, even further into this is a sport. So it didn't make any of my lists because it's not a sport, but it is definitely a fun activity I would try. All
right. Jared, how about you? Did you give any thoughts to it?
I think it's very interesting, honestly. I mean, because I'm into water, so maybe that has something to do with it. Do I have to go like Obie do and rate it each particular category, or just give it an overall?
Basically, you can do each category if you want. You can do it overall. I'm cool with whatever.
I give it a solid C minus.
Okay.
You know, I mean, yeah, C minus would do. I think it's very interesting. I mean, why not even try something like that? You know?
Yeah. Awesome. You know what? I'm going to take it in this case. Usually I wait for last on this, but I feel like going this case here. Oddity/stupidity. I gave it a C also. Obie, did you give it a C?
A little lower. It's even less odd and less stupid.
Okay. You know, I gave it a C because it is a little odd in this case. And being the one that, and you would be the only one to remember this, the one who had a penchant for hitting the trees at Mr. Rickley's cabin, you know, going down the hill and, you know, the sleds way back when we were back in the 80s there. I would have a little bit of trepidation doing this because I would find a tree somehow. I am just naturally gravitated towards hard objects when I go down a hill like this, and that is what. So for me, I gave that oddity of stupidity a C, maybe even a C minus. Obscurity, I gave it a B minus. I think this is one of those things that I think is pretty popular. Zorb balls in general can be used in a lot of different ways. You know, they have like full contact sports where people bounce into each other's off the ball and literally try to be the only person standing. So obscurity, I gave it a B minus. Playability, I did give it a B. I think it could be something that's a lot of fun in this case. It does tie into my water rat side a little bit. So I would really like to have the opportunity to try it just once, just to be able to see what it's like, which I also say the same way when it comes to skydiving, just once, just to say I did it. And lastly, watchability. Right now, as it is, I got to give it a D. I mean, it was a neat little thing to watch at the one time, but right now, agree with you, it's not a sport. But if it became one, if you figured out a way to turn it into like a luge event or some kind of a competitive time thing, I mean, heck, if you could figure out a way to do it and not hurt them and turn it into some sort of a ski jump thing, go for distance, you know, I would be so down to watch that. But I don't think right now it's got a lot of watchability. I think it's unique, but to me, it's kind of like, all right, one and done, I'm happy. So Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Am I unmuted? Oh yeah, make sure I was unmuted.
Yeah,
I'm with you guys on like oddity and obscurity. I gave it a C minus only because I've seen this before, and like what Obie was just talking about, and you just said as well. If you've ever watched the MTV challenges, they use Zorb balls all the time for competitions, and that's where the watchability. What we saw on the YouTube video, like you said, is a D. But when you watch it on MTV, it's a B plus to an A plus, depending on who the contestants are. You see people get blown up like off the field and everything. But it's definitely playability is a B. I could totally see myself climbing in a ball, like even just to go down the hill like that. But if you make it like a competitive thing where like on the MTV shows, they'll put an empty ball in there and it'll be like a soccer match, or you'll just have, like Obie said, like a sumo style one where you got to bowl somebody off the court, or the field, and it's hysterical because you get people who are you get the stronger competitors who just overpower somebody and get so much force, and the physics of the Zor ball, like you see people, it's like just impact and then somebody goes flying in the opposite direction because there's so much force hitting them. So yeah, it's not a sport as is, but it has potential to be, like, when you add certain aspects to it, to be great. Like I could totally see someone coming up with the Zorb Olympics, and it's just different sports inside of a Zorb ball. So
Obie, I think you had a thought. Before we get to that, I want to get to Michael's thought first, if you have one.
No, I had issue.
Michael, any thoughts?
I mean, for me, I thought all of you guys kind of pinpointed some really good things. For me, playability, this is definitely something that could be a lot of fun. Just because of, like you said, I would have no problem getting in there, and especially if there's that competitive component added to it. Absolutely, I think it's playability, obscurity, and watchability. Definitely around C's. It was funny when you messaged me saying we're gonna watch it. I didn't know what it was until I watched it, and then the things Rob talked about kind of came to my mind. I was like, definitely remember that from the MTV shows and whatnot. So, but it's fun. I mean, look, at the end of the day, looking at that video, people are having fun in it, and I think that's what was most important. So,
agreed. And it's funny because in this particular case, I never heard about it until yesterday morning. I was looking up something, and I happened to stumble on that, and I'm like, I sent it to Obie. I sent it to you. It's like, what do you think? Good, And that's usually how the obscure stuff usually rolls with us. So I am, by the way, open to doing another full obscure episode. The good folks at 5 Fox were nice enough to take that episode and run it on Fox 26 in Fresno. So I am more than happy to do another full obscure episode if it means getting us on another Fox network again. So let's see if we can make that happen. By the way, I'm plugging the show that way if I can. All right. So anywho, find us, like I said, as always, on Twitter at SSW Sports Den and Spangler Sports Den on Facebook. We've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to roll right into Mike's wheelhouse, especially now. Being the good person that he is also the play-by-play guy for their AAA affiliate, the Iron Pigs, which I think you've got the shirt of. So, yep, Iron Pig Pride.
Iron Pig Pride.
So, want to talk a little bit about the Philadelphia Phillies right now. Girardi is back. Realmuto, I think, has an injury right now. Bryce Harper's back. Didi is back. They've done pretty well overall. But I'm a little concerned with something that Girardi said the other day, where he said that this is more than an 80.5 win team. Do you think this team has the potentiality to get back into the playoffs right now, knowing how much stronger the NL East got?
Right now, with how the NL East is laid out, no. I think if you looked at every team and every player on the Mets, the Braves, the Nationals, even the Marlins to some extent, lived up to the back of their baseball cards. I think the Phillies right now are maybe at best a third place team. I probably pigeonhole more as a fourth place team. But with that being said, I think if the Phillies stay healthy, and we can get into it if you guys want to, I can certainly break things down a little bit more. But I think if they stay healthy and live up to the back of their baseball cards, they're anywhere from an 83 to an 86 win team this season. So, but that's going to me, in my opinion, still put them behind. That I think the Nationals are an under the radar team where I think they're going to compete for a wild card. I would have to say if the Mets stay healthy, they're probably the division favorite right now, but it's amazing to me how many people are just pushing down Atlanta right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless I miss something overnight, the Braves have really good pitching. They have a young, exciting lineup, and they have a pretty good bullpen. So, but I think a lot of the hoopla with the Mets in what they were able to do this offseason, I think overshadowed Atlanta. So I actually think the NL East has got a chance to be really good this year. In Miami, I mean, they're young, they're spunky. That's a team they're going to upset some teams along the way. They're going to, they're going to play loose. They're going to play fun. Don Mattingly has that team playing really well. Had to play really well last season. So I think the National League East has got a chance to be pretty good this year.
What's going to be interesting, though, is now, obviously, we're not dealing with a 62-game season or even 100 games. We're dealing with a full 162. So that's going to separate things a lot more. And you're going to be looking at you're not going to see what you saw last year, where 2 teams with a sub-500 record made the playoffs, especially under the format now that it's back to 14 teams again. But in this particular case, I don't think the Marlins can do it. I think they're going to have a good season. I think, to be honest with you, my dark horse right now is Washington. I think last year was a fluke. Last year was an anomaly. They've got too many good weapons there that I think they're going to rebound, and they got a lot to prove to show that last year was an absolute unbridled fluke. I'd like to see the Mets get back into the playoffs. I think they've been stellar in the offseason. But as always, as we say on the show, the Mets got a Met. So somewhere along the line, somebody's probably going to get injured. Something's going to happen somewhere. And knock on wood, it won't. But it wouldn't surprise me if they drop down to third place because something happens. Lindor gets injured on the first game and he's out for 3 months. That would not surprise me. That's just their karma. It's the energy, their vibe that they've got. But I think when it comes down to it, I think the Braves, I think they are probably the division favorites right now because you cannot ever count out that team. The Mets have been beautiful this offseason. The Marlins have been the fun, spunky bunch, but they have a lot to prove. There's a big target on their back. Last year, the Marlins, I think, they surprised a lot of people. They're not these people are not going to be surprised this year. So, Rob, how about you, man?
Yeah, like Mike has a great point. Like, people forget about Atlanta. Like, it's not, the Mets didn't raise the bar. The Mets kind of raised themselves up to the level that Atlanta was at last year. So everybody's all enamored by the Mets and the deals they're making, but they're playing catch up. It's not like they were the elite team. It's not like they're the Dodgers and they're going out and signing Trevor Bauer and some, other free agents, and like the Padres going and getting people. They're playing catch up. They didn't make the playoffs last year, did they? The Mets?
No, they didn't.
No. So they're not even a playoff team.
Even on the
catching
16-game format.
Yeah, they're catching up to everybody else. So Atlanta, in my opinion, is still the team to beat until somebody beats them. They've been like arguably the most dominant team in the National League East for the last 25 years. Going back to Maddox and that great pitching staff they had.
All of Bobby Cox.
Bobby Cox, Glavine, Smoltz, all those guys, Chipper Jones, Andrew
Larry
Jones.
Jones,
Larry.
Larry.
It's the NL East is going to be a competitive division. It's going to be fun to watch, but there's no, I think, like you said, you got to watch out for Washington. They're going to be a good club if they stay healthy. They've got a lot of talent. And the Marlins are going to be there. Marlins have that blissful ignorance. They're just so young. They don't know any better. Like, oh, we're not supposed to win? No, sorry. We won 9 in a row. We'll lose the next one. But yeah, it's that division might be the best, toughest division in baseball, this season coming up. Even with the NL West, I think it's just really going to be a 2-horse race between the Padres and the Dodgers. But the NL East is going to be arguably has 4 teams that are going to just rain chaos down on each other and anybody who passes through.
Nice. Jared? You're on mute, Hermana. Okay.
Sorry. I think the Phillies won't make the playoffs, first and foremost. I do think the Mets I don't know. I mean,
exactly.
I don't know. A little bit of me want to say they make the playoffs, but it's the Mets. It's like the Jets. But I definitely
Mets, Jets, and Nets all rhyme for a reason.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. I rather prove me till I'm wrong, pretty much. You know what I mean? I think the Braves is going to come out as division favorites because everyone always forgets how much of a franchise history that the Braves have. They never really are out of it. I mean, they had those couple of years that they didn't really make the playoffs, but within the past, 25, 30 years, they have been the best team in NL East. So I think the Braves are also one of the only teams that's probably going to be in the NL. They're going to go pretty far in the playoffs. And they're probably going to play the Dodgers, and the Dodgers probably go all the way to the World Series. But I think those two teams will be the final 2 teams in NL. And as far as the Marlins, no, I think that was just a fluke year, or they just got lucky. Nationals will be better, but I think they'll be above the Phillies. So it's just like Mike said, I think they'll be the 3rd place team. The Phillies will be the 4th place team. So we'll go Atlanta, New York. Atlanta, New York. What did it say?
Washington,
Washington and Philly.
Okay, it's kind of a shame too because I like Girardi and I like Didi. But
yeah.
Obie, that's your neck of the woods there on the other side of the Philadelphia pond.
That's right. And so I'm going to start with the Braves and say that I will confidently put my flag in the hill and say they are making the playoffs. They may win the division, they may not. They may fall behind the Mets and get the wild card, but they're making the playoffs. The Mets, on the other hand, could win this could win the series. I mean, the Mets could be the best team in baseball. The Mets could also Met. And as a lifelong Met fan, that is such a realistic possibility. You know, you can have an Endy Chavez catch one inning, and then give up crooked runs the next. It just is what the Mets do, which is why I wouldn't put my flag in that they are going to make the playoffs, although I can easily imagine and would expect them to actually take out the Braves. But not because the Braves are not a great team, but just because the Mets may have caught up. I don't think the Phillies have what it takes to catch the Braves. I don't know if 83 to 86 wins is going to be enough to get in. There's 7 teams, but I like your number there, 83 to 86. Like Joe Girardi's number. He's saying they're going to be a 500 team. I agree with him. They're going to be a 500 team.
Yeah, but managers aren't supposed to say that. Not with that payroll.
It's not New York.
Yeah,
I will say that. So
that is true. Philly is it's like a suburban, more of a suburban Brooklyn or suburban Queens.
So, like, when I moved down here, what I learned quickly is football is number 1. It's not even close. Hockey is number 2. The Phillies have to be good to pass the Flyers. They can pass the Flyers in fan base at any given time, but they have to be good. The Phillies have a pretty high floor, but the Flyers are just so ingrained down here in the fan base,
especially this year too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Sixers, as good as they are, and as much as as great as Embiid can be, they're treated like the Mets. Like, they're going to Sixer. That all being said, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. I wouldn't put I just don't see it. I feel that Washington was more of a blip, and that the Marlins weren't. I mean, I think it's going to be a really tough division. And then I agree with what Jared said. The best 2 teams in the National League are in the West. That is going to be fun to watch. So if you don't have a team in the National League, stay up late if you live on the East Coast to watch what's going on in the West. If you live on the West Coast, just enjoy what you see out of the Padres and the Dodgers for what could be 5-6 years now with the signings that they have going on there.
Well, you and I talked about that on your show, Me, My Scotch, and I. Friday nights, 10 p.m. on Zingo TV channel 250.
Thank you for the plug.
Yes. But yeah, the fact that they locked down Tatis for literally a dozen years on, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, a team-friendly $1/3 of $1 billion contract. You know, I've never actually said those words, team-friendly at $340 million over 12. But yeah, that's going to be a fun. The NL West is going to be a fun division watching those two go at it. I mean, unfortunately for Arizona, unfortunately for San Francisco, they're just going to be swallowed up in that division. It's going to be sad to watch. It's going to be a 1-2 punch the whole way through for, that whole way, but the Dodgers,
Who's the favorite out of AL this year?
What's that?
Who's the favorite out of the AL?
Not the Yankees, for starters. I still haven't forgiven them for letting Tanaka go.
You need to turn the page on that, my friend.
I know.
And they just re-signed Gardner.
I know. They re-signed Gardner with also a team or player option for next year as well, which is a good deal. I mean, I think that was good to bring him back as well. He is a fan favorite. He is a leader in the clubhouse. You can work with him a little bit in this case, especially with the 7-inning setup that they have for the doubleheaders, which there's probably going to be a lot of doubleheaders this year, kind of like basically they had back in the 80s where it used to be a lot more common to have doubleheaders. We're coming back to that now, which I do like, and I think that's part of a good deal getting him back. But yeah, no, I'm missing Tanaka there. Kluber is going to be a question mark. There's a couple of question marks on the Yankee roster. Despite losing Springer, I'll be honest with you, do not count out Houston. I think they're going to compete well. I think they're going to also try and show that they deserve to be there and that getting into the playoffs last year was not a fluke with a losing record. I think that team is going to be able, go out there. I love Dusty Baker. I always have. One of the biggest problems that I had with the whole Houston issue is they got one of the most likable, outgoing, and personable managers to take over the most vile and, most hated team in baseball. But I would never, ever count that team out. I would say don't count out the Rays, even though they've given up a lot. They've lost Snell. They've lost a few things in there. I think, honestly, until I hear otherwise, I'm going to probably go with those two again.
Minnesota, sleeper pick.
Could be, yeah.
Or the Blue Jays, too. The Blue Jays are,
I don't think the Blue Jays are ready yet. I mean, I think
Vlad Jr. is going to hit 80 home runs.
80 home runs. Okay,
Eduardo's loving that right now.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, all of Toronto is just like, yeah. You mean the Florida Blue Jays?
Yeah.
Yes, the Florida Blue Jays.
That's right. Yeah, they're playing down there.
They're playing in Florida, which I guess I don't know. Buffalo, I guess, couldn't acclimate. I don't know the specifics on why that happened. Anywho, we got 3 minutes left. Michael, thank you. How can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me. They can follow me on Twitter @VanDaily, or of course, you can head to ironpigsbaseball.com. So we are the proud AAA affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies. So we're excited. We're having our home opener on Tuesday, April 6th.
Nice. I was going to ask you about
when
that.
the Syracuse Mets come to town, the Mets AAA affiliate. So I'm excited for baseball, guys, but enjoy always talking plenty of other sports. But if I can add one quick thing,
Please.
The team to keep an eye on, giving you guys some homework, and you feel free to email me. Do your research on the Chicago White Sox and get back to me how good they are.
Okay.
Trust me on that one. That's a team to keep an eye on in the American League this year.
Fair enough. Man knows what he's talking about on this one. So
I was honestly sitting here thinking, because I know the Indians gave up Lindor and Carrasco, so I'm like, they're probably out of the picture. I'm like, who else is in the Central? And I was like, the team. I remember the Yankees beating Minnesota, which is why I jokingly said Minnesota. But yeah, I could totally see somebody from the Central be in the sleeper pick going on a run, because it's going to be a soft division probably. And if you can run the table and get home field, it's going to, gives you an advantage in the playoffs.
Obie, Jared, any final thoughts from you, gents?
No. I would just like to say Michael just robbed me of my Chicago White Sox claim.
See, but Obie and I run the same wavelength, brother. We got it.
I've just been. I think that they have a nice little thing going on there, and like Rob said, there's not as much competition there. But if the heart of the Yankees lineup can find availability, they have all the ability in the world, and that obviously scares everybody.
Sure. Jared, any final thoughts, man?
I mean, we only have probably a couple of seconds left, but I just wanted to say, Mike, thanks, Mike, for coming to the show.
Dude, awesome. Love having you here.
I didn't want to really be brief, but I just saw 1 minute, so I'm kind of like stressed on time. But
go for it.
I definitely enjoyed doing the show again, obviously, as always. So.
Well, you've been out for a little while because you've been handling everything work-related and quarantine-related too, travel and being stuck in a hotel room for 10 days straight.
It's probably going to happen again, but hey.
This too shall pass. But hey, it comes part and parcel with the job. You can be sitting in a cubicle, being angry that it's only a Tuesday. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's going to do it for us. This show is available on 35 platforms throughout 4 different continents right now. North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Right now, unfortunately, we are not yet in South America, Africa, or Antarctica, but we're pushing Antarctica here at this point. That's Rob's goal. He wants Antarctica at some point. They're going to set up a tower down there. We're going to start broadcasting down there. Thanks, as always, to Mike Ventola, for coming back. I appreciate you guys. You have been amazing, as always, as will the 3 of you guys over there. Jared, Rob, Obie, you guys, I appreciate it. As always, find us on Twitter at SSW Sports. And this is nice with the green screen. I can just point to it now. And also Spanglish Sports Den on Facebook. I'm Scott Churchson. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Drop us a question, idea, comment, thought, compliment, or complaint. And you know what? Have a great